A very good morning to all of you. Welcome back to the channel. So let's start with the analysis for 26th of July 2023. So firstly, we see that talking about functioning of the parliament. So we know that currently from 20th, we saw the beginning of the monsoon session. So opposition plans no trust motion against the Modi government. So again, no confidence motion. Now you need to know about all the basic things about that. That is one thing. And yesterday we talked in detail about what are the possible dimensions जो आपको पता होने चाहिए regarding this thing. Then Modi hits out at opposition grouping over India name. So recently we saw this thing. So India, it stands for, basically here in this acronym stands for Indian National Developmental Inclusive Alliance. This is the name for 2000. This is the name for 26 party opposition alliance. So stating that people, they could not be misled merely by the addition of the country's name. Then India-China relations arrived at consensus on ties in Bali. So let's see what is the update here. Talking about India-China relations, so we see that obviously the specifically in the context of border dispute. So Prime Minister Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping, they reached a consensus to restore the bilateral ties during their meeting in Bali last year, said China. And the first time either side has suggested that a meeting between the two leaders at a dinner had included any substantial conversation also. So claim was made in Chinese Foreign Ministry statement, and Indian statement did not include any reference to the claim and instead focused on the continuing line of actual control standoff that Mr. Duval said had eroded the public and the political basis of the ties between India and China. So in Manipur, when we talk about the internet curb, so it has been partially, or you can say marginally, lifted off. So after an 83 days of internet shutdown in Manipur, the state government eased the restrictions marginally. So mobile internet, it will continue to remain banned over the fears that spread of disinformation and rumors through social media platforms that could trigger further unrest. So obviously right now we can't say the situation is under control because every day we are seeing instances of violence happening in the state. And of late we have seen how the sexual assault instances, even they are cropping up. So this is one thing. And apart from this, we have already discussed what has been the Supreme Court judgment when it comes to complete internet shutdown. So there are some reasonable restrictions under which it can be done. But again, this cannot be a common thing or a common measure. It needs to be the last resort. So that is another thing. So talking about the Chandrayaan-3 mission, the update about it is that the final orbit raising maneuver of it has been completed, and that's basically the picture. So gradually, this happens, or this is done. Basically, you're talking about the orbit appraisal thing. So ISRO, it will perform the trans-lunar injection on August 1 to slingshot Chandrayaan-3 towards the moon. And the 4 previous orbit raising maneuvers, they were performed between 15th and 20th of July, and they were successful as well. So you can see how gradually the orbit appraisal, it was performed, and then it would be like finally injected into this trajectory where it would be moving towards the moon. So this is, you can see the lunar transfer trajectory is going to be somewhat like this. On the editorial page, so here we see, so this we have discussed in detail. The Rajasthan state mein, they have tabled the bill on gig workers' rights. So iska hum critical analysis already kar chuke hain. So you can just have a look at this article and visit that previous video. So moving away from the take, make, and dispose model. So here, resource efficiency and the circular economy, they are powerful strategies that can effectively minimize our dependence on natural resources, curtail the waste, and encourage sustainable design practices. So, in the collective global endeavor to ensure sustainable development and realize DSG goals, decoupling the resource utilization from the economic growth is going to be the key. So, recognizing the need to switch from take, make, and dispose to reduce, reuse, and recycle model, India has prioritized resource efficiency and circular economy as one of the three core themes for deliberations in the G20 forum. So, this is also going to be one of the priority areas this time. So herein, going in further details, we see circular economy, then circulatory in this steel sector, extended producer responsibility, circular bioeconomy, and establishing an industry-led resource efficiency and circular economy industry coalition. So these are going to be some focus areas, and here you can use this keywords, this phrase in your answers as well. So recycling, a bioeconomy, and biofuel. So herein also when we talk about ethanol blended petrol, that is one progress area. Then hydrogen as a fuel, green hydrogen, all of that. Then if like here it is mentioned, effective implementation, the EPR, it plays a pivotal role in promoting the growth of the recycling infrastructure, establishing a streamlined waste collection system. So that needs to be another focus area when we talk about the waste, the solid waste disposal. So segregation of waste, and herein like we need to properly streamline the waste collection system. Then Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Yojana, it provides financial support to integrated bioethanol projects to set up the second generation ethanol projects. So here you need to know about all the generations of ethanol fuels that we have, how they are basically different. Then the Govardhan scheme, it was launched by Government of India to convert the cattle dung and other organic waste into compost, biogas, and biofuels to promote sustainable agriculture. This was another initiative. Then we had this Satat scheme, which is sustainable alternative towards affordable transportation. This was launched in 2018 to promote the use of compressed biogas as an alternative green transportation fuel. So as industries, they are also crucial in advancing the resource efficiency and the circular economy practices, because ultimately industries, they would be implementing all these things and bringing them in the everyday usage. So India has envisioned an industry coalition in these areas, and that would be playing a very significant role. So global platforms like G20, they play an important role in addressing all these key issues, and then also deliberating upon what can be the solutions by adopting a collaborative approach. So resource efficiency and circular economy, you can note down the keywords. And so these two things, they have emerged as the key solutions in collective efforts in tackling the triple planetary challenges. So Himachal floods, a man-made disaster. We have seen instances of flash floods. You can see one of the pictures, and the damage it has caused to the infrastructure, and then again, the lives of people that have been lost. So why is climate change alone? It is not to blame for the unprecedented rain and floods in the state. And anthropogenic reasons भी हैं इसके पीछे. So should the development model, obviously that needs to be relooked, and how are the changes in the way dams they are built or shift in the crop patterns, then rush of tourism. So ये कुछ factors हैं जो problem को थोड़ा और aggravate करती हैं. So is climate change the only reason for rain and floods? So obviously हम सारा burden, या we can't completely shift this entire burden saying कि ये तो सारा climate change की वजह से हो रहा है. तो आपको फिर ये भी समझना important है climate change किस वजह से हो रहा है. कुछ natural reasons है, कुछ man-made reasons हैं. So यहाँ पे we see IPCC 6 report, it has clearly stated कि जो Himalayas and जो coastal regions of India है, they will be the hardest hit by climate change. And we are actually seeing that happening as well. So Himalayas में there is noticeable pattern of increased precipitation हमें देखने को मिल रहा है shorter time periods में, and IMD data also shows कि जो normal rainfall है during this period, that is expected to be between 720 to 750 mm. So certain instances में ये 888 mm तक भी increase हुई है. So this year precipitation so far it has been attributed to the combined effect of the southwest monsoon plus western disturbances. So total rainfall from June to date it was 511 mm. But you can imagine कि इतनी rainfall में ही अगर ये situation है तो अगर आने वाले time में rainfall it is somewhere in this range तो actual situation क्या होगी? Like we can't even imagine what would be the devastation. So should the development model जो भी hilly states के लिए development model है उसको rework करने की जरूरत है कि नहीं? So obviously जो situation है this question मतलब there's no need of even asking this question. So we see कि apart from climate change कुछ मतलब ऐसे anthropogenic factors है that have significantly contributed to this disaster. So state के जो development model initiate किए गए in 1971 they were successful in transforming Himachal Pradesh into an exemplar of development for the mountain states. But ये हम 1971 model की बात कर रहे हैं. Current times में obviously जो situation है जो challenges है accordingly डेवलपमेंट मॉडल भी रीशेप किया जाना चाहिए. सो वी सी कि जो पहले डेवलपमेंट मॉडल अडॉप्ट किया गया उससे हमें अच्छे रिजल्ट्स भी मिले. सो बिकॉज ऑफ दैट वी आल्सो सी दैट इट रिजल्टेड इन हिमाचल प्रदेश रैंकिंग सेकंड इन द सोशल डेवलपमेंट इंडाइसेस एज वेल. And by 1980s electricity even that is reached every household with improved connectivity in the remote areas, healthcare centers availability, accessibility or increase hui, schools came up and there were major advancements even in agriculture, shift towards apple and off-season vegetable economies. All this fostered both the economic and the social vibrancy in the state. But since 1991, we see post-liberalization. It led to significant changes with the central government demanding stringent fiscal reforms and mountain states being forced to generate their own resources for the fiscal management. So actually, कौन से fiscal resources रहे states के लिए? So exploitation of the natural resources ये increase हो गया, including forest, water, tourism, then cement production, and all these they become major focus areas. So basically somehow we can say it led to over exploitation and this led to rapid construction of hydropower projects as well. Then we see expansion of the cement plants altering the land use patterns, shift in agricultural practices to cash crop economies. So all this affected the landscape and the river system. So the natural flow of river था अगर आप उसे छेड़छाड़ करोगे तो obviously end result would be devastation. So hydropower projects की बात करें तो एक क्वेश्चन ये आता है कि क्या हमें कम्प्लीटली उनका कंस्ट्रक्शन या हाइड्रोपावर प्रोजेक्ट स्टेट्स में हिली स्टेट्स में मतलब नहीं होने चाहिए या होने चाहिए तो फिर किस तरीके से क्या चेंजेस रिक्वायर्ड है. सो हाइड्रोपावर प्रोजेक्ट्स की बात करें तो इट बिकेम अ डोमिनेंट फोकस फॉर द हिल स्टेट्स विद देयर कैपेसिटी मेजर्ड इन टर्म्स ऑफ द मेगावाट्स टू अट्रैक्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट्स. So notably, these are significant shift in the funding priorities of the multilateral agencies. Also, investments they starting coming up in the form of hydropower projects in the hilly states. And then, अगर hydropower projects hilly states में नहीं आएंगे तो obviously energy security के ऊपर भी एक question raise जरूर होगा. So one of the main reasons for devastating impact of the floods in the region is uncontrolled construction of the hydropower projects. You need to emphasize upon the keyword uncontrolled construction activities. That is one of the major reasons. So technology that was employed was run-of-the-river projects, dams, diverts. They basically divert the water through tunnels, which is burrowed in the mountain. So run-of-the-river projects बनाए गए. And apart from this, during periods of higher precipitation or cloudburst, water returns to the river carrying the dumped muck along with it. So इसकी वजह से जो segment है basically sediment है वो ज़्यादा deposit हो जाता है. It leads to blockage. And currently we see there are 168 hydropower projects in operation, generating around 10,800 megawatt of electricity. And so basically the surge in hydropower projects raises concerns about inevitability of impending disasters in the region. So अगर इसी तरीके से hydropower projects आगे construct किए गए in an uncontrolled, unregulated manner, तो obviously आने वाले time में और ज़्यादा destruction देखने को मिलेगी और ज़्यादा frequency of such instances would be going up in future. Then tourism industry की बात करें तो development driven road expansion, it is also aimed at promoting tourism and attract large number of tourists and visitors to the hilly states. Road widening projects undertake किए गए in the form of PPP models. So traditionally जो mountainous regions हैं, they are not cut with vertical slits but they are terraced, minimizing the damage to the environment. But इसकी वजह से again जो massive landslides होती हैं, that becomes a dangerous thing. And उसके अलावा obviously जो damage होता है to the existing road infrastructure, restoring these roads after such disasters, obviously this is a time consuming exercise. So consequences of such road expansions, they are evident during even normal rainfall times. Maybe we are seeing landslides hoti hain. So it leads to slips and slides and amplifying the magnitude of destruction during the heavy rain and floods. So cement plants की बात करें, so have they harmed the environment or not? So obviously they would be causing this harm as well. So establishment of massive excessive cement plants, extensive cutting of the mountains and districts like Bilaspur, Soul and Chamba, it has resulted in significant land use changes. So जिसकी वजह से again results हुआ, end result was flash floods during rainfall. So cement plants की वजह से जो natural landscape था वो alter हो गया, removal of vegetation हुई because of obviously वहाँ पे cement plants अगर आपको construct करने पड़ेंगे तो उस land को आप फिर agriculture के लिए use नहीं कर सकते हो. So this reduced the capacity of land to absorb the water. So basically और ज़्यादा concretization हो गया. जैसे हम urbanization में बात करते तो hilly states में urbanization किस तरीके से हुआ, उसकी वजह से we saw कि जो लैंड की वाटर अब्जॉर्प्शन कैपेसिटी थी वो कम हो गई. सो जिसके वजह से अगेन फ्लैश फ्लड्स में सिचुएशन और ज्यादा आउट ऑफ कंट्रोल हो जाती है. सो क्रॉप पैटर्न्स विद टाइम, क्रॉप पैटर्न्स भी चेंज हुए, हमने शिफ्ट देखा टुवर्ड्स द कैश क्रॉप्स. देन सो अब अल्टीमेटली वे आउट क्या है? सो कमीशन ऑफ इंक्वायरी बनाई गई है, बनाई जानी चाहिए टू ब्रिंग द जो भी मेजर स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं लाइक पीपल ऑन बोर्ड एंड डिस्कस क्या पॉलिसी फ्रेमवर्क फेलियर रहे एज वेल एज और क्या इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट है ऑफ द प्रोजेक्ट्स जो ऑलरेडी लाइक दे आर अंडर प्रोग्रेस एंड आगे क्या स्टेप्स लिए जाने चाहिए. सो न्यू आर्किटेक्चर इज रिक्वायर्ड, लोकल कम्युनिटीज का साथ इम्पोर्टेंट है, जो लोकल टेक्निक्स हैं वो इम्प्लॉय की जानी चाहिए एंड जो भी लॉसेस फेस किए गए इन द फॉर्म्स ऑफ culverts or village drains, small bridges, schools, other social infrastructure, वो भी compensate किया जाना चाहिए. इसके अलावा rebuilding the assets quicker, उस पे focus होना चाहिए. So climate change, it is a reality. So humans, they should not add to the problem, but they need to make adequate changes in infrastructure planning to avoid the disasters that the state has been witnessing since June. So यहाँ पे changes required हैं. So Lok Sabha has passed this biological diversity bill. Heavy Sea Environment Minister says that the amendments necessary to address the issues in the 20-year-old Act, and green activists, they argue it will solely benefit only the Ayush firms. And House panelists said that the proposed exemptions, they may pave the way for abuse of the law also. So देखते हैं क्या amendment किए गए हैं in this biological diversity bill 2021. So it seeks to exempt जो भी registered आयुष medical practitioners हैं from imitating biodiversity boards before accessing biological resources. So basically जो बोल सकते हैं कि थोड़ा और strictness increase करने के बजाय उसको और dilute किया जा रहा है. So it also aims at easing जो भी compliance burden है, boosting investment and simplifying patent application process. So this is something positive. And environmental organizations, they have raised concerns about the potential for biopiracy. So biopiracy instances increase हो सकते हैं, and they say कि these amendments, they favor industry. There is lack of clarity on benefit sharing with the local communities. So traditional knowledge, so a tribal, you can see in this picture, harvesting the Arogya Pacha leaves from a forest in Kerala. So these are some of the concerns with the recent amendments brought about in this bill. So life की बात करें, the legal initiative for forest and environment has said key amendments they were made to solely benefit only the Ayush firms. So उसकी वजह से biopiracy increase हो सकती है. Then this bill decriminalizes a range of offences under the act and substitutes them with the monetary penalties. So जो पहले harsh crimes थे उनको decriminalize करते हुए उनके ऊपर harsh penalties impose कर दी गई हैं. So वही मतलब all in all इसको थोड़ा dilute करने की कोशिश की जा रही है. So political parties and RTI की बात करें तो right now political parties they do not fall under the ambit of RTI. So political parties का मानना ये है कि अगर उनको RTI के अंदर लेके आ जाता है तो it might reveal their internal discussions. So CGI orally observed that political parties may have a point when they feared that accountability under the RTI may stretch even to disclosure of the internal discussions, including why they chose a particular candidate. So, अगर basically the things are being done in an honest and transparent तरीके से हो रही है, तो political parties को firstly इसमें कोई problem नहीं होनी चाहिए when it comes to their accountability. And CGI leading a 3-judge bench was hearing the batch of petitions seeking declaration कि जो national and regional political parties हैं, they were public authorities under the RTI Act, and जो भी public authority है obviously RTI Act के अंदर जो भी petitions डाली जाएंगी आपको information provide करनी पड़ेगी. So CIC ने 2013 and 15 में national और regional political parties को public authorities declare कर दिया गया था. And so parties, they have argued that opening up to RTI may lead to an undemocratic infringement into their confidential discussions. So Center has opposed the petitions, reasoning that parties cannot be compelled to disclose their internal functioning and financial information, as this would hamper smooth internal working within the parties. But again, बात सारी घूम फिर के यही आती है, अगर आप honestly you are fulfilling your responsibilities with transparency and proper ethical standards follow करके parties function कर रही है, तो internal democracy में भी basically जो internal democracy तो political parties हैं या जो भी disclosures उनको करने पड़ेंगे about the discussions and मतलब what are the basis जिसके basis पे आपने जिसके बिहाफ पे आप किसी पर्टिकुलर कैंडिडेट को सिलेक्ट करते हो उसको डिस्क्लोज करने में कोई प्रॉब्लम होनी नहीं चाहिए. So President opens the Tribal Arts Gallery at Rashtrapati Bhavan as she finishes a year in the office. And here we have the picture as well. She inaugurating Tribal Arts Gallery in New Delhi. So in this gallery, it showcases different themes like the unsung tribal freedom fighters, traditional natural resource management practices such as Halma, then tribal art like Dokra, musical instruments display पे हैं, whereas scripts like Gunjala, Gondi script, they are on display. So ये जितनी भी अभी चीजें हमने mention करी ये सब important जाती है for the examination, तो आप थोड़ा और search करोगे about the unsung tribal freedom fighter heroes, and that's there. So इसके अलावा all these things are also on display. So aim of this gallery is to provide a glimpse of rich art and culture and contributions of the tribal communities in building this nation. So ये हो गया broader theme. Now इसके ऊपर भी definitely एक potential question जरूर बन सकता है. Coming to the world page, so here we see Israel Palestine के बीच में जो conflict चल रहा है, obviously situation is very volatile and unstable. Then protesters they roil Israel over the new law. So जो judicial reforms के ऊपर law लेके आए गए हैं, doctors they keep off the work. इसके ऊपर एक पूरा प्रोटेस्ट चल रहा है. So thousands of Israeli doctors, they walked out of work. Labor leaders, they threatened a general strike, and senior justices, they rushed home from a trip abroad. So the government approved the law weakening the country's Supreme Court, that critics say it will erode the system of checks and balances. तो कहीं ना कहीं indirectly यहाँ पे भी dilutions की बात की जा रही है. So more centralization of power and dilution of the power of Israeli judiciary. So Jill Biden marks the US re-entry into UNESCO with a Paris ceremony. So US First Lady Jill Biden attended a flag-raising ceremony at UNESCO in Paris, marking Washington's official re-entry into the UN agency after a controversial 5-year hiatus. On the business page, we see inflation, it may resurge to 6% in July because of food prices. So food inflation, cereal inflation, this is like increasing. So उसके वजह से जो overall inflation है, it might even cross the 6% mark. So इस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में हम ऑलरेडी बात कर चुके हैं कि फूड इन्फ्लेशन हम बोल देते हैं कि इट इज सीजनल फैक्टर्स की वजह से, एंड एवरी टाइम बेसिकली एवरी ईयर वी हैव द सेम रीजन. बट इसके लिए क्या स्टेप्स लिए जाने चाहिए, दिस वी हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस्ड. एंड ऑब्वियसली वी कांट जस्ट shift the burden or the blame even in this case. So fake GST accounts, around 9,300 fake GST accounts have been detected by CBIC, and evasion of around rupees 11,000 crores has been recorded and identified. So ये एक सबसे बड़ा problem रहा है in GST, and GST input tax credit के basically claim करने के लिए ही fake GST bills generate किए जाते हैं. So इसको कैसे tackle कर सकते हैं, that needs to be thought about. And 5 states led by Delhi, UP, Haryana, Gujarat, they account for almost 60% of the suspected fake accounts. So in his states में एक तो इतनी ज़्यादा concentration क्यों है, वो भी पता लगाना important है. Then IMF is saying कि India rice curbs, it could spur the inflation. मतलब globally situation थोड़ी खराब हो सकती है. Because India's move to restrict the exports of certain types of rice, it could exacerbate the food price inflation, and this should be reversed according to IMF. So because of this cereal inflation, India took the decision कि हम exports पे भी ban लगा देंगे, क्योंकि पहले आप domestically चीजों को कंट्रोल में लेके आओगे, उसके बाद आप एक्सपोर्ट करने का सोचोगे. बट अगेन ये थोड़ा we can say कि it is little being selfish. And also since Russia also withdrew from this Black Sea grain exports, तो यहाँ से भी चीजें थोड़ी खराब हो रही हैं. तो both these factors basically it would lead to increase in the global food prices inflation. कमिंग टू द मिड न्यूज पेपर. सो यहाँ पे हम इंडिया के फॉरेक्स रिजर्व्स की बात करें तो पहले हम देख रहे थे कि इट वाज डिक्लाइनिंग, बट सडनली क्यों रिवर्सल हुआ, एंड नाउ यू कैन सी कि ट्रेंड इज मूविंग अपवर्ड्स. सो हमने यहाँ पे पीक किया अराउंड $650 billion पे, उसके बाद वी स्टार्टेड सीइंग अ फॉल, and now from here we have jumped back again and we are at $609 billion. So forex reserves, they have recently jumped partly due to the revaluation gains as dollar has weakened. So एक सबसे बड़ा factor ये है in terms of increase in our forex reserves, weakening of dollar. So let's understand all the reasons in detail. So what explains the rise in the forex reserves of India? So one, so we have discussed weakening of dollar. So dollar, it appreciated after the US Fed, it hiked the rates, and India को जो BOP है, that saw a lower net capital inflows. So this trend reversed with the dollar index peaking last October as expectations of the further Fed rate hikes that waned. So forex reserves, they jumped this year primarily due to revaluation gains as dollar weakened, and capital flows भी increase हुए हैं, because now India is going to be it is emerging as one of the safest investment options for investors globally. So FPI inflows have again jumped back. And also oil imports from Russia, they have also not settled in dollar. So यहाँ पे भी we are like not depending upon dollar, and rupee पे we are shifting using the Vostro accounts. So this has also added to the reserves. So कहीं ना कहीं डॉलर के ऊपर इंडिया की डिपेंडेंसी कम हुई है. That is one of the reasons क्रूड ऑयल में. And since obviously 40% of the crude oil हमारा रशिया से आ रहा है, तो that like have a major impact. So ये कुछ reason है जिसकी वजह से we are seeing forex reserves rising. So is this level of forex reserve sustainable or not? So इसको sustain करना important है हमारे लिए. There's a significant improvement in the BOP with the current account deficit also now projected at less than 2% of the GDP. So there is a resumption in equity capital flows, with India continuing to attract maximum flows among the emerging market peers. So India के forex reserves की global positioning की अगर हम बात करें तो India stands fourth among the countries with the highest forex reserves at the global level. So top three countries are China, Japan, and Switzerland. And most countries barring India, they run large and persistent current account surpluses since they have a competitive export market. But India के case में we have the current account deficit, and India, Brazil, and USA, they have built the reserves through capital flows instead of huge current account surplus. So this is the difference. So forex reserves आप measure कैसे करते हो? It is not just कि कितना dollar आप hold करते हो. There are other components as well. So 4 components here: foreign currency assets, gold, special drawing rights, and reserve position in the IMF. So RBI time to time revaluation करना important है with a changing exchange rate. So accordingly जो हमारे foreign currency assets की value है वो accordingly vary करती रहती है. Forex reserves are influenced by movements in the exchange rate and gold prices. So depreciation of US dollar or higher gold prices, it causes the values devaluation gains. So basically जब डॉलर वीक होता है तब हमें फायदा होता है, और गोल्ड प्राइसेस जब इंक्रीज होते हैं तब भी वैल्यूएशंस इंक्रीज होती हैं. So strong dollar or fall in the gold prices brings down the value of the non-dollar portion of the reserves. So what is RBI's plan to diversify the forex kitty? मतलब कैसे हम अपनी अगेन जो हम डी डॉलराइजेशन की बात कर रहे हैं, डिपेंडेंस अपॉन द डॉलर कम कैसे कर सकते हैं? आरबीआई का क्या प्लान है इसके ऊपर? सो इट प्लान्स टू इंटरनेशनलाइज द रुपी एज अ मींस टू रिड्यूस द डिपेंडेंस ऑन द फॉरेन करेंसी, and we're also exploring the use of currencies of member states of the Asian Clearing Union, including rupee, for the payment and settlement among themselves. So Sri Lanka se we are collaborating, basically Dhaka, Bangladesh se we are collaborating in terms of doing the bilateral payments in the Indian currency. Coming to Financial Express newspapers, so IMF, it raises the GDP growth to 6.1% for India, and global growth in this financial year would be seen at 3%. So change is attributed to the strong performance in the fourth quarter of India. So India definitely one of the bright spots globally, and also one of the strongest emerging markets. Right now we see कि developed world में how challenging the situation is, and उस time पे we are seeing कि Indian economy is resilient, and we are going forward with a strong momentum. So that is obviously something very big for India. The difference from April estimate in terms of percentage is 0.2% in terms of the growth forecast, and the same way goes for the world GDP growth rate. So India's GDP growth forecast for 2023-24 is somewhere between 6% to 6.5%. So here you have the different forecasts by different bodies. So oil prices, we are seeing key prices again increase हो रहे हैं, and they hit the 3-month high because of tightening supplies. So supply कम हो रहा है and demand obviously उतनी है या increase हो रही है, तो crude oil prices are going up. So ये थोड़ा हमारे लिए challenge हो सकता है because इसकी वजह से जो हमारा BOP अकाउंट में deficit है वो और increase हो सकता है. So general government debt, it moderates to 80% of the GDP. So this also like increased up to like around 90%, 95% during the COVID-19 period. But now again, it is come down to almost 81% of the GDP. So sharp post-pandemic fiscal correction, it yields the results. So fiscal deficit as percentage of GDP center and we have the proper trend from financial year 2019 up till 2023. So financial year 2019 में the fiscal deficit of center was 3.4%. Then it started to increase. This was obviously COVID-19 के time period पे 4.7% हुआ, उसके बाद 9.2% तक increase हुआ. Then it started to decline, and the estimate for the current financial year is for the previous financial year, I should say, it is 6.4%. So India's general government debt moderated to 81% of the GDP in 2022-23 from 83.3%. And here also we have exact target कि कहाँ तक हमें इसको कम करना है. So state level पे बात करें तो many states they pruned their capital expenditure plans to keep the fiscal deficit below 3% of their GSDP. मतलब capital expenditure आप कम कर दोगे, revenue expenditure कम नहीं कर सकते हो. तो यहाँ पे बात आती है रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर को रैशनलाइज करने की, एंड FRBM एक्ट है, वहाँ पे क्या टारगेट लेवल्स है फॉर द स्टेट्स को वो पता होना चाहिए. So government says that there is no copyright restrictions on playing music at weddings and other events. So music sounds free. So DPIIT, it receives several complaints about collection of royalties by the copyright societies for performance of musical works. So copyright societies, they may face legal action if they collect the fees for the performance of musical works at official and religious ceremonies. So this wouldn't be allowed. Enabling rural development, ensuring sustainable progress, NABARD के बारे में थोड़ा you can find out. And here we have like the proper figures in terms of total income from the operations, कितनी रही, net profit or loss for the period. So ये सब mentioned है. So from today onwards, we are taking up the newspaper of Hindustan Times as well. So let's see the important things we can get here. So we see that Delhi Services Tussle Major recently ordinance issue किया गया था by the government. So cabinet note has been approved for this bill to replace the ordinance. So it may be tabled next week. So what is happening and why it matters? So इसको although हम discuss कर चुके हैं in detail, you can just go through these highlights. So जो Supreme Court की judgment थी, that was in favor of the Delhi government. And but जो central government है, they brought up this ordinance surpassing the Supreme Court judgment. So you need to shut the coaching centers which are not in compliance with the rules. It's been ruled by the Delhi High Court. So जितने भी coaching centers Delhi में recently we see कि एक fire incidents हुआ था. So या तो आप rules को follow करोगे या coaching centers को बंद करना पड़ेगा. So fire clearance certificate होने चाहिए and proper safety measures deploy करना बहुत important है, because obviously we know कि such coachings are located in crowded places. So number theory देखे how many Indians they are getting richer with India. So economic inequality वाला एक थीम आ सकता है यहाँ पे. So a lot of India's GDP traction comes from the fact that it is very large population and obviously with more working hands. So with India having replaced China as the most populous country sometime this year as per the UN projections, this factor it will become even more important going forward. So while India is on its way to becoming the third largest economy in the world, perhaps the second largest in PPP terms, how many Indians they're enjoying high living standards is the question. So this is the question which the second part of this data journalism article will try to answer. So first is, what does income tax data tell us about the Indian incomes? So यहाँ से थोड़ा समझने की कोशिश करेंगे कि इनकम इनइक्वालिटी का क्या इंटेंसिटी है इंडिया में. सो इन एन आइडियल वर्ल्ड की अगर हम बात करें तो इनकम टैक्स डेटा इट शुड टेल अस अबाउट कि अर्निंग्स ऑफ वर्कर्स कितनी है इन इकोनॉमी, बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली दैट इज नॉट द केस विद इंडिया, क्योंकि large proportion जो है that is we see कि people they are working in the unorganized sector. So according to latest income tax data we see, so it is available for the assessment year 2018-19, which corresponds to the fiscal year 2017-18. So we see only 57 million, it is million income tax returns they were filed in India. और इंडिया की पॉपुलेशन कितनी है 1.4 billion. So this is just 13% of the estimated 455 million workers in the country according to this periodic labor force survey. So labor force is 455 million and ITR file किया only 58 million लोगों ने. So that is only 13% of 455 million. And इसके अलावा the reason why the number of ITRs are significantly lower. Now समझना यही है इसके पीछे कि ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है. So the reason is that the number of total workers in India, it is not because of the tax evasion, but it is possibly a reflection of agriculture income. एक तो वहाँ पे tax नहीं है. Large number of जो workers हैं they are employed in informal economy. So जैसे मैं starting में आपको बता रही थी, ये दो main reason है कि क्यों ITR file जो की गई है they are so low. So of the 58 million जिन्होंने ITR फाइल करी, अब उसको अंडरस्टैंड करते हैं कि उन जितने लोगों ने ITR फाइल करी उनकी क्या इनकम लेवल है. So they were filed for 2017-18 almost 2/3 reports an annual income of up to rupees 5 lakh. So 90% they have income less than rupees 10 lakh per annum. So comparison of these numbers with 2011-12 की अगर फिगर से हम compare करें तो it shows that there has been an upward movement in incomes of Indians filing ITRs. So बोल सकते हैं over a 5 to 6 year of time period के अंदर the incomes they have increased. So but we still see कि जो 90% of the लोग हैं उनकी income जो है it is less than 10 lakh per annum. So यहाँ से हमें थोड़ा आइडिया हो जाता है. So to be sure the data it also shows कि even within the income tax also there exists a massive income inequality. So यहाँ पे income inequality वाला element आ गया. So यहाँ पे the scale is कि just 10% of ITRs they account for more than 50% of the returned incomes. So this is, you can see the intensity. So income tax data shows the rise in income. You can see how sharply it has increased 2012-13 से 2018-19 के बीच में. Then the top 10% of ITRs जो हैं they account for more than half of the returned incomes in the assessment year 2018-19. So you can see कि यहाँ पे cumulative share in income सिर्फ इतने लोगों का ही इतना ज्यादा है. So this is cumulative share in the number of ITRs. So यहाँ पे maximum contribution इस area से आता है. So what about workers who do not file ITRs? So जो लोग ITRs file नहीं करते हैं, workers हैं, so उनकी income को हम कैसे समझ सकते हैं? So here we have another data. So this is basically because India does not collect income data and even the official consumption numbers, they are also not available after 2011-12. So there is no foolproof way of estimating ki un workers ki income levels kya hai. So one way is that we can estimate is using the PLFS numbers to estimate wages of the workers. So यहाँ पे भी एक problem है which needs to be kept in mind while we are understanding this thing is that the workers they do not really include the really rich and possibly they count even the lower middle class. So यहाँ पे हम सिर्फ lower middle class की बात कर रहे हैं. And only 3% of these workers, they reported annual income of 4.5 lakh, more which comes to an estimated 14 million. So the number of ITR returns which reported an annual income of 4.5 lakh or more was 24.8 million. So यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा हमें idea मिल सकता है. So estimating the income levels of Indian workers. So here you can see between 0 to 1.5 lakh, 74,000 rupees. This is the average annual wages की बात की जा रही है. Percentage of workers का share है. So maximum 78 to 79% हम बोल सकते हैं is in this bracket, the first bracket only, 0 to 1.5 lakh. So average annual wage उनकी है 74,000. Next we have the income bracket जो है 1.5 lakh to 2 lakh के बीच में. The average income is 1,77,000. So you can see as we move forward, जो share है वो कितना कम होता जा रहा है. Coming to lack of social security or savings that can emerge as an important headwind going forward. So this chart is showing the share of workers which are not eligible for any social security benefit. So under 15, 93%. So between, you can see it is talking about eligibility. Basically कितने लोग eligible नहीं हैं. So अगर हम working age की थोड़ी सी बात करें, so 19 से 24 79% eligible ही नहीं है. 25 से 29 71% नहीं है. 30 से 40 72% eligible नहीं है. So this is the scale, and to be sure जो income inequality है, it is not unique to India. What makes it particularly worrying, जो India में basically main cause of concern is that an overwhelming majority of जो workers हैं, they do not have social security benefits also. So 74% of the workers ऐसे report किए गए जिनके पास social security benefits नहीं हैं. And this problem, it could possibly become more acute going forward क्योंकि social security, it is not even smaller for the young who are more likely to remain in the workforce than their older counterparts. So to be sure, these figures, they need to be read carefully. It's possible कि जो figures हैं, they are like grossly underestimated also. So एक idea के लिए हमारे लिए basically important है समझना. So no confidence motion, यहाँ पे you can see पूरी history दे रखी है of no confidence votes. So 27 is the number of times कि no confidence motion has been moved in the Lok Sabha. And 1963 में this was the first time जब no confidence motion को introduce किया गया, but the government survived then. 1979 में Morarji Desai was the only prime minister to resign in the middle of the no confidence motion. So this was the first and the last time. So 15 times ऐसा हुआ है कि no confidence motion it was moved against Indira Gandhi and she won on all the occasions. मतलब एक बार भी she was not defeated through the no confidence motion, and 15 times she had to prove a majority. So new biodiversity bill के बारे में हम बात कर चुके हैं. इसके अलावा the International Convention Center is going to be inaugurated by the Prime Minister of India today. This is the entire structure at Pragati Maidan. So New India gets a new icon for world-class exhibitions and global trade activities. So the sitting capacity is 7,000. And here you can see all the salient features of it has been mentioned. So you can see it will be like friendly to especially abled and senior citizens. Then global platform for MSMEs and artisans. Excellent road connectivity and proximity to five-star hotels. Integrated command and control center ensuring seamless connectivity to 5G internet. and 10G intranet bandwidth, curated art form, selected materials, been sourced. It is equipped with a majestic multi-purpose hall, plenary hall, which is having a combined capacity of 7,000 people. So it would be India now comes or it enters the list of world's top 10 exhibitions and convention complexes like Frankfurt, which is there in Germany, Shanghai is there in China. So 26 July, Kargil Vijay Divas. So Indian Army, it fought the legendary battles at the altitude above 12,000 feet in Dras, Kaksar and Batalik and Turtuk sectors of the Kargil district to evict Pakistani intruders, strengthening our territorial integrity. So Operation Vijay, it was one of the toughest and longest campaigns of modern times. So you can see different battles. They were fought: Battle of Kololing, Battle of Tiger Hill, Battle of Kalugar, Battle of Point 4875, operations in Batalik and operations in Kaksar. So you can just go through them. And Operation Vijay Gallantry Awards are Paramveer Chakra, Mahavir Chakra, Veer Chakra, and then we have the Sena Medal. We are seeing more instances of cloudburst in Himachal Pradesh. So again, we have discussed this thing a lot, disaster management, what needs to be the plan, which can be unique for the hilly states. And also we discussed today that it is the entire blame cannot be shifted to climate change. It is also because of the man-made factors and पूरा हमने डिस्कस किया क्या मेजर फैक्टर्स रहे, क्या हमें चेंजेस देखे विद टाइम एंड अब आगे क्या रिक्वायर्ड है. Let's see opinion page पे क्या important topics हैं. So again, havoc in the hills. It has key lessons for India. So क्या important lessons है? Let's understand. So heavy rain, it has wreaked havoc in hilly states, and it holds lessons on how we can better manage the projects, give people a voice in the decisions around them. People participation is important and कैसे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर प्रोजेक्ट्स को मैनेज किया जाना चाहिए आने वाले टाइम में. हमने बात कर चुके ऑलरेडी डैम जो हाइड्रो पावर प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं वो कैसे आने चाहिए, सीमेंट इंडस्ट्री ने कैसे डिस्ट्रप्शन किया है, डैम रिलेटेड प्रॉब्लम्स जो है ऑब्वियसली वो एड्रेस होनी चाहिए. एंड these are the things going forward. गिग पैराडॉक्स कल हम प्रॉपर डिस्कशन कर चुके हैं, राजस्थान स्टेट जो बिल लेके आ रही है. So SDGs, they are unlikely to be met. More or less expectation यही है कि they are unlikely to be met by 2030. So what comes next? So अब क्या करना चाहिए हमें? So here the global goal, they are phenomenal idea, but there what happened when the United Nations came together and said ki here are the world's biggest problems and here is how we are going to measure the progress on them. So 17 SDG goals, and it includes promises to end extreme poverty, hunger, fix the climate crisis, education, reduce inequality and corruption. So right now we are in the mid-year. 2023 is the mid-year when there's supposed to be accomplished, at least half of them needs to be accomplished. So the goal have done a great deal of good. The world is falling short in nearly all of them. So this is the perfect time to assess the global goals, recognize कि क्या काम कर रहे हैं, जो efforts लिए गए कितने effective रहे and क्या काम नहीं कर रहा है उस पर हमें focus नहीं करना चाहिए, उसको refine करके चीजों को implement करने की कोशिश करनी चाहिए. So प्रॉब्लम ये है कि जो ग्लोबल गोल्स हैं, जो SDG हैं, they are too much of a good thing. So there are huge number of targets हैं जो accomplish करने पड़ेंगे. Having so many targets, it wouldn't be necessarily be an issue if the world were stepping up to fund all of them. तो फंडिंग कहीं ना कहीं एक प्रॉब्लम रही है. The massive shortfall calls for two-pronged approach. So आने वाले टाइम में first is do whatever is possible to shrink this gap in terms of financial availability. And here we can see assistance by even the multilateral development banks. Second is that even as the donors they set up, and all of us we need to recognize कि जो inflation है, rising interest rate एक challenge है, they are stretching governments to the limit. So sad reality is world is not going to find $10 trillion more each year for the global goals. So we need to identify the best buys in the development. Obviously ये सारी चीजें because it's economics में सारी चीजें कोई ना कोई interrelated है. तो डायरेक्टली या प्लेनली बोलना कि बिकॉज ऑफ द फंड क्रंच या फाइनेंसेस में जो प्रॉब्लम है उसकी वजह से SDG गोल्स को हम वी आर नॉट ऑन द ट्रैक टू अकम्प्लिश देम. बट एट द सेम टाइम हमें और भी बाकी जो ग्लोबल चैलेंजेस हैं, इन्फ्लेशन है, उसकी वजह से इंटरेस्ट रेट इंक्रीज किए जा रहे हैं, तो वी कांट जस्ट सिंपली टॉक अबाउट कि फाइनेंसेस अवेलेबल होने चाहिए, क्योंकि इसकी वजह से कहीं ना कहीं फिर इन्फ्लेशन के ऊपर एक नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट होगा. So we need to first recommit to the funding work on these global goals because saving lives and helping people escape poverty is important. Second, let's acknowledge that the need is greater than the available funding. And with these principles in mind, we can make sure the global goals they accomplish greatest good. Extreme heat waves specifically in Europe देखने को मिल रही है. That is because of the climate crisis. We are seeing wildfires in the forests. Extreme weather, it has caused havoc across the planet with temperature breaking records in China, US, Mexico, and Europe. So adaptation is the key going forward. Let's move to Indian Express now. So Kargil Divas is seeing saluting the brave tigers of our armed forces. So a victory that defied all odds. So 1999, Pakistani troops infiltrated our side of the LSE, disguised as Kashmiri militants, giving rise to the historic Kargil War. So ये सारे topics हम already ले चुके हैं. Will not be taking them up again. So Worldly Wise says that all that is valuable in the human society depends upon the opportunity for development accorded the individual. So ऐसे topics हमें ethics में देखने को मिलते हैं. तो again you can just go through them and आप 2-3 मिनट बैठ के सोच सकते हो कि आपकी क्या approach रहेगी in deciphering this Worldly Wise. So road to 2047 India's quest to achieve high income status by 100-year milestone, it requires concentrated policy initiatives across different sectors. So 2047 would be the year when India would be completing 100 years of independence. And we basically have this aim of being, achieving this high income status by then. So उसके लिए हमें क्या करने की जरूरत है, उस चीज के ऊपर ये आर्टिकल बात कर रहा है. So we see कि in his Independence Day speech last year, Prime Minister Modi had laid the vision for India to achieve the developed country status by the 100th year of independence. So definitely एक ambitious target है. So जब हम बात करते हैं हमारी per capita income, that is at around $2,400. So currently we are also classified as a lower middle income country in the World Bank. So considering कि IMF expects India's per capita income to rise to $3,700 by 2028, so it is unlikely to achieve upper middle income status क्योंकि उसके लिए we need to fall in this range of 4,256 to 13,000. तो अगर हम यहाँ पे इस रेंज में भी फॉल करते हैं, still we would be in this range of upper middle income country. तो as per IMF estimate तो लग रहा है कि we won't be achieving this thing, but achieving the developed country और high income status की अगर हम बात करते हैं तो it is again जैसे हमने बोला ambitious target है, but it is not impossible. Obviously किसी भी चीज को हम we can't say कि ये possible ही नहीं है, ऐसा हम नहीं लेके चल सकते, बिकॉज उसके अलावा अगर हम पेसिमिस्टिक व्यू ही स्टार्टिंग में लेके चलेंगे तो जो प्रोग्रेस हमने आज तक देखी है उसमें से काफी सारे एलिमेंट्स हो सकते हैं कि हम नहीं अचीव कर पाते. चाहे अब आप कोविड-19 वैक्सीन की डेवलपमेंट की बात करो विद इन 1 ईयर, तो अगर हम स्टार्टिंग में ही सिर्फ यही लेके चलते कि इतना जल्दी वैक्सीन डेवलप करना तो पॉसिबल ही नहीं है, तो वो हो भी नहीं पाता. सो हम ये पेसिमिस्टिक व्यू नहीं लेके चलते, ऑल्दो हम फोरकास्ट की बात कर रहे हैं कि बाकी क्या IMF का कहना है, क्या उनके फोरकास्ट है. बट करंटली कंट्रीज विद पर कैपिटा इनकम एक्सीडिंग $13,000 दे आर क्लासिफाइड एज हाई इनकम बाय द वर्ल्ड बैंक. सो अगर हमें हाई इनकम स्टेटस अचीव करना है तो फर्स्टली हमारी पर कैपिटा इनकम नीड्स टू बी अबव $13,000. एंड इसके अलावा अगर हमें ये गोल अचीव करना है तो जो हमारी नॉमिनल पर कैपिटा GDP है, that need to grow at 9.1% per year up till 2047. Real terms में जो GDP है that works out to be 7.6%. So इसको achieve करना definitely difficult task होने वाला है. And India did not achieve the growth rates. And this was a period which was marked by high inflation. यहाँ पे इस time period की बात हो रही है. So can India realistically grow at the required pace for the next 25 years or not is the question. कैसे हम इंश्योर करेंगे कि हम इतने हाई रेट पे ग्रो करें, वो एक पूरा टास्क है. कंट्रीज जिन्होंने ट्रांजिशन देखा है टुवर्ड्स द हाई इनकम स्टेटस, दे आर मार्क्ड बाय 2 कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऐसी कंट्रीज में देखी गई है. तो पहली है कॉन्शियस डिसीजन टू इंडस्ट्रियलाइज, एंड आप फोकस करोगे एक्सटर्नल ट्रेड सेक्टर पे. तो एक तो ये कॉमन कैरेक्टरिस्टिक हमें देखने को मिल रही है. बट इंडिया की अगर हम डेवलपमेंट ट्रेजेक्टरी की बात करें तो हमारा जो फोकस एक्सटर्नल ट्रेड पे इतना ज्यादा नहीं रहा है. Indian economy is a consumption driven economy. So successive governments, they have attempted to address जो gaps हैं in order to boost the manufacturing, and as a consequence merchandise exports हैं, they have not reached the levels जो हमने सोचे थे. And अभी जो global situation भी चल रही है उस situation में ट्रेड सेक्टर या ट्रेड लेड एक्सपोर्ट्स लेड ग्रोथ पे फोकस करना अभी एक काफी चैलेंजिंग टास्क भी हो सकता है. उसको रिवाइव करने में भी टाइम लग सकता है. एक ये पूरा टास्क है. क्लियरली बिजनेस एज यूजुअल अप्रोच तो हेल्प नहीं करेगी, हमें और एक्स्ट्रा एफर्ट्स लेने की जरूरत पड़ेगी. एंड देन पॉलिसी प्रिस्क्रिप्शन आउटलाइन इन द स्टडी अंडरलाइंस की जो अर्जेंट नीड है हमारी टू इंक्रीज द इन्वेस्टमेंट इन इकोनॉमी, रिड्यूस लॉजिस्टिक्स कॉस्ट, फोकस ऑन स्किलिंग द लेबर फोर्स, इन्वेस्टिंग मोर इन द हेल्थ एंड एजुकेशन, स्किलिंग अप R&D अमंग अदर्स. इस पे फोकस करेंगे. एंड टू अचीव द एम्बिशियस टारगेट laid out by the Prime Minister, concerted efforts they are definitely needed. There is no room for delay या complacency. तो इस चीज का तो कोई ऑप्शन ही नहीं है. So we are seeing कि UAE, it has offered to invest in Pakistan. China तो कर ही रहा है, but UAE is also interested in investing in Pakistan to help it pull out of its entrenched economic crisis. And it could emerge as an important economic bridge connecting subcontinent and Gulf. So India's engagement with the Gulf has also transformed the triangular dynamic between India, Pakistan, and Gulf. So in the past also we saw that Pakistan ke jo relations hai with Gulf, they loomed larger than India's. Today we see growing weight of India's engagement with UAE, Saudi Arabia, that puts Pakistan in the shade. But overriding Pakistan's objections, UAE invited India's foreign minister also to the OIC summit in 2019. And UAE, it has not criticized India's decision to change constitutional status of Kashmir as well, and it has encouraged its businessmen to invest in Kashmir. So everything is like going good between India and UAE. तो डीएनए टेक्नोलॉजी बिल की बात करें, क्या उसके फीचर्स हैं, डिबेट क्या है एंड क्यों इसको विड्रॉ किया गया. सो डीएनए बिल, इट हैज थ्री प्राइमरी ऑब्जेक्टिव्स. First is that it sought to set up DNA profiling board as a regulatory board. One of the functions of it would be to provide accreditation to the laboratories authorized to carry out the DNA sample test. So bill, it also provided for creation of databases, DNA data banks creation की बात की गई, जो DNA information को collect and store करेंगे. And this database, it could be indexed and searched for matching samples from the crime scenes. तो यहाँ पे भी help कर सकता है. Third चीज जो है, it sought to facilitate collection of the DNA samples from the convicts and the accused as well. So ये तीन major objectives रहे DNA bill के. So use of DNA technology for identification purposes, it's like already prevalent in India, and criminal justice system में DNA fingerprinting वो भी use की जाती है, and that is also considered as a valid evidence. So, however, in absence of regulatory mechanism, use of this technology, it was extremely limited, क्योंकि इसको misuse भी किया जा सकता है. So increasing the testing capacity, it could be extremely important in casing of missing children, about 1 lakh every year, and identification of the unclaimed bodies in disasters and accidents. वहाँ पे भी हमें DNA technology help कर सकती है. So objections क्या रहे? Primary objections तो थे, they were on grounds of privacy, utility, possibility of misuse जो हो सकता है. So DNA information, it can be very intrusive, revealing not just identification traits, but it may also reveal other features that can be liable for the misuse. So critiques का कहना ये था कि they pushed for inclusion of as many safeguards into the bill as was possible, and several rounds of discussions भी किए गए, जिसमें different stakeholders को include किया गया. Number of changes were also made, but it was not acceptable to all. And recent years, we saw apprehensions. They were also raised about possibility of this law being used for radical profiling. So other bill की बात करें, unable to get the DNA bill passed in Parliament government last year, it included several of its provisions in this criminal procedure identification bill that was brought in to replace Identification of Prisoners Act, and provisions related to the collection, storage, access, and sharing of DNA information. So this bill was also passed by both the houses of the parliament in 2019. So some members have pointed out that the government it was attempting to pass the provisions of DNA technology bill through the back door and tried to refer it to the parliamentary committee for further discussions. So what has been basically left out is creation of a regulatory environment, development and adoption of standards and best practices in DNA testing, and capacity building in this area through accreditation of more laboratories equipped to handle the DNA tests. So ये missing areas say safety limits to flying. So to prevent the risk to the flight safety due to fatigue, rules, it prohibits the airlines, pilots and crew from flying for the longer than specified duration. So obviously it is about entire safety of all the people on board. So non-negotiability of these norms, the massive expansion plans of the airlines, and a looming shortage of the pilots together, it prevents a formidable challenge to India's domestic aviation. So challenge तीन मेन चैलेंज यही है। पहला तो नॉन नेगोशिएबिलिटी ऑफ दीज नॉर्म्स। जब बात करते हो बेसिकली पायलट्स कितना टाइम के लिए दे वुड बी फ्लाइंग, बिकॉज ऑब्वियसली सेफ्टी के साथ आप कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं कर सकते। सेकेंड इज जो एयरलाइंस के मैसिव एक्सपेंशन प्लान्स हैं, एंड एट द सेम टाइम पायलट्स की भी शॉर्टेज है, तो उसके साथ आप कैसे उसको सिचुएशन को डील करोगे, दैट इज अ टास्क। सो FDTL के जो नॉर्म्स इंडिया में यहाँ पे क्लियरली मेंशन्ड है। एयरलाइंस के लिए अंडर DCGA रूल क्या है, कैरियर्स के लिए क्या रूल्स हैं, फ्लाइट क्रूज के लिए क्या रूल्स फॉलो करना इंपॉर्टेंट है। सो कल हमने बात करी थी इंस्टेंट सेटलमेंट ऑफ द ट्रांजैक्शन। सो हाउ विल इट बेनिफिट द इन्वेस्टर्स। सो अभी हमने रिप्लेस किया था T+2 से T+1 सेटलमेंट। एंड इंस्टेंट सेटलमेंट की बात करें तो ऑब्वियसली इंस्टेंट मतलब इंस्टेंटली आपका जो भी ट्रांजैक्शन सेटल हो जाएगा, आप पैसे या जो प्रॉफिट आप विड्रॉ कर सकोगे। सो इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए तो यही बेनिफिट है कि आपको ज़्यादा टाइम के लिए वेट नहीं करना पड़ेगा, जो आपकी ऑपरेशनल एफिशिएंसी है वो इंक्रीज हो सकेगी, एंड ऑब्वियसली दिस वुड अट्रैक्ट मोर इन्वेस्टर्स टुवर्ड्स इंडिया एंड पॉसिबली मोर रिटेल इन्वेस्टर्स। So that is all for today, and thank you so much for joining us in the today's analysis session. I hope the things and the topics that we took up there are clear to all of you. The different dimensions that we try to raise and understand, they brings much more clarity to you. So do subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. Thank you so much for joining us.